As we celebrate Chinese New Year, we will explore what is known to be one of the oldest Chinatown in the world. And joining us today is tour guide and Manila's tourism consultant, Carla Saldran. Good morning.
Hello, Claire. How are you doing?
Nice to have you back here on Daybreak. So tell us more about Binondo.
Okay, Binondo is the oldest Chinatown in the world, actually. But the original Chinatown doesn't find itself here on the north side of the Pasig River. It was originally on the other side, where Manila City Hall is located.
Oh.
And in the 19th century, they established this church that you see here, Binondo Church, and Chinatown moved away from there to over here. And it's always been the center of commerce and trade and culture when it comes to the Filipino-Chinese community.
Okay, the Filipino-Chinese community, how do you think it's changed within the past decade or so? Here, the people living in Binondo.
Well, the Chinese ended up in the Philippines because of trade, and a lot of them also were escaping persecution from the Order of China, which still had an emperor over there. So most of the people who are in the Philippines now who are Filipino-Chinese descent are Southern Chinese. And they came here, they adapted themselves to Philippine culture. A lot of them became Catholic, and some of them even Hispanized their names. So a family name that was once Sontua became Tuason. And then you can see some family names in the Philippines still having its Chinese roots, like Huangco, Consunhi, Tuason, Lacson, Pecson, Kimzon, Quezon, Tan, Pe, Si, Uy, and Yu. All of these Philippine family names were originally Chinese.
Okay, got it. So now we're standing. You told me to meet up with you here in Binondo Church. And what is the importance of Binondo Church here in this community?
Well, it's the center of the community. From really here, Chinatown begins. Here at Plaza Calderon de Barca, and then you go down Ongpin Street, and you can really see the Chinese flavor of Manila. But let me show you some proof of Chinese presence in the Philippines from the very floors of the Binondo Church.
Okay, let's go. Okay, where are we now, Carlos?
We're here in the entrance of the Binondo Church in Chinatown, and it's here on the floors you can actually see evidence of Chinese trade in the Philippines 100 years ago.
Okay.
But looking right below your feet.
Okay.
First, you have to remember that the Philippines is a volcanic country, so we don't really have anything here permanent to build with. We have mostly adobe, which is volcanic ash, bamboo, seashells, corals. Granite in the Philippines, a more permanent building material. We call it piedra china, China stone, because all of it's imported from China.
Okay.
And you can see evidence on the floor, so check it out. And you can see Chinese writings and inscriptions on some of the piedra china that we have here on the floor.
Okay.
And some of them, like that one, is actually a Chinese gravestone.
Oh,
And it's not because we buried Chinese people here, but because when the Chinese were coming to the Philippines during the galleon trade, and they brought over silk, spices, porcelain, those merchants would first go to a graveyard in China and steal all the discarded gravestones and use it as ballast on the boat to balance out the weight. And when they came to Manila, they'd sell the silk, they'd sell the spices, the porcelain, and the ballast. And Filipinos who don't have any solid building material to build with because they only had adobe and bamboo would buy it and use it to line the floors for a more stable foundation.
Is this the same material that is used in most of the churches around Manila?
All of Intramuros' floors are piedra china. Like a lot of the floors in Vigan are made out of piedra china. This is a very expensive material now. But back then, it was the most common material used to create foundations for Philippine buildings. Okay, another good example of Chinese influence in Filipino architecture would be the belfry. If you look at it, this is actually a transformed Chinese pagoda. It's done in an octagon, and it's actually done in the same shape as a pagoda that you see in China, but now given a Philippine Catholic twist. Because the Chinese have always been involved in the construction of Philippine buildings. If you look at most of the hardware stores here in Chinatown, who own it? The Chinese community of the Philippines. Same today as it is hundreds of years ago.
During Chinese New Year, I could just imagine that it's going to be a big celebration here. What is it like?
It's really when Chinatown goes all out. And there will be lion dances, there will be fireworks, there's going to be a lot of food being served. But I also recommend if you're gonna come down here in Chinatown during the celebrations, I'd park my car over in Intramuros and walk down the street to Ongpin. It's a really walkable part of town. And the best way to enjoy Chinatown is really by foot. And to show you just what I mean, walk down the street and I'll show you my favorite market street called Umbrella Street here in Binondo. Another name for Carvajal Street is Umbrella Street. And the reason why is because as you can see right above us, there's no roof. So every time it rains, all the people walking down this street would use umbrellas. So they call it Umbrella Street.
Why do these ginger, right?
Okay,
Why do they
you
have
get this
ribbons?
for Chinese New Year because this is good luck. It's multiple, it's round, it's bulbous, it's got many different eyes, and it's really that symbolism that makes it really important for the Chinese New Year. Because roundness is prosperity, roundness is good fortune, roundness is good luck.
So they get these for Chinese New Year.
For Chinese
and
New Year.
they put the ribbons especially for the New Year.
For the Chinese New Year, because red is also an auspicious color for the season. But most especially, as I'm telling you, things that are round are good luck. So have lots of oranges in your house for New Year. You can have one of these things. This is really not a very popular street, not even in tourist guides do you hear about Carvajal Street. It's just right here. It's like going to another country in your own backyard. I really love Carvajal Street because it shows you the soul of Chinatown. As you know, most of Manila is becoming mallified. A lot of our commerce, a lot of our gathering places are now inside malls. And I find malls to be rather predictable. I find to be rather antiseptic because everything is really created by one governing body, which is the management of a mall. But here in downtown Manila, you can see that businesses are still on the street. It's not antiseptic, it's gritty and it's real. And we really should start protecting heritage business streets like this because, you know, it really shows you what a city is about. Makati shows you what the Philippines wants to be. Old Manila shows you what Manila is, what the Philippines really is.
All right, Carlos, why are we here?
Okay, we're here on Quintin Paredes Street, once called Rosario Street. And Chinatown is really one of the greatest repositories of architecture in our country today. During World War II, the United States Armed Forces and the Japanese really burned down the south side of Intramuros, Ermita, Malate. But the northern side stayed pretty untouched. So if you look behind you, you can see a wonderful shining example of pre-war Art Deco architecture, the Uy Su Bin building. And it's right here on the ground floor that my favorite lumpia house is located. Let's talk about a little bit about Chinese influences on Philippine food.
Okay, lumpia time. Let's go.
But I also want to talk about Chinese influences. I want to also talk about Chinese influences in the way that Filipinos eat. Since we don't have royalty, Spanish food has kind of become in some weird way the food of royal moments. If you have a wedding in the Philippines, will you serve adobo? No way. Will you serve a sinigang? No way. People will gossip about you, right? So you serve paella, you serve salpicao, you serve some sort of like colonial Western cuisine. And then Filipino food, as we know, is actually, I would say, lutong bahay. Filipino food is family food. It's food that people gather around the table and create a community with. It's not really food to make for a special occasion. It's for an everyday family occasion. Everybody has their own version of what adobo should be. And Chinese food, as we know, it is really kind of like the food of commerce, a reflection of their mercantile influences upon Philippine history. So if you go to any Philippine province, what is the most common food that you can buy anywhere? Siopao, siomai, pancit, guapao, and lumpia. So that's how you can see the Chinese influences in the way we eat.
I love lumpia ubod.
No.
This is like authentic,
Yep.
not like the
Before we
Pinoy.
Filipinized it, yep.
Yeah. So you were mentioning to me that most of the Chinese Filipino came from the south of China?
Yes, a lot of Filipino Chinese are Fukien. Because remember, like a long, long time ago, there was an emperor in China. And the Order of China was really kind of repressing the south part of China. So a lot of southern Chinese ended up in the Philippines in order to sort of like liberate themselves from that oppressive Chinese order. So in the 17th century, 18th century, 19th century, they'd come over here and adapt to Philippine culture. They'd adapt Philippine religion. A lot of them became Catholic. And a lot of them would end up living here in Binondo or right outside Intramuros in the Palayan area. This is the Santo Cristo de Longos, right in the corner of Tomas Pinpin Street. And this really also is another symbol of the amalgamation of Chinese culture and Philippine Catholic culture. Because look, it's a crucifix, but you're honoring it in a very Chinese way, which is using incense. So you can really see a little bit of the mix of the East and the West, a little bit of Catholicism and Chinese Taoism. A perfect metaphor for the city.
Okay, are they mostly Catholic?
Yes, a lot of the Chinese that came to the Philippines became Catholic in order to amalgamate themselves into the city. But as you know, Chinese traditional beliefs, as we see here, is not dogmatic. It's not like Catholicism where you have to be strictly stuck with the Catholic doctrine.
Right.
They like to mix and match.
Okay, and that's what we see.
Yeah, dance for the dragon in power, I say. Why not? Okay, turn here on Salazar Street. Okay, another one of my Binondo choices, Shin Tai Shang Foods, my favorite Chinese bakery in all of Binondo. So Claire, this is my favorite bakery in all of Chinatown, Shin Tai Shang. Okay, it's all Taiwanese specialties. But the reason why I like this place, and I would drive to this place from anywhere, is because of their chicken pie. It is out of this world.
Never had anything like this before. It's so good. This is?
Usually for the Chinese, since majority of the Chinese are Buddhism, so this is something that we usually offer to the God of the heaven, and also during New Year's time. Yeah. So you can have a look at this one. It's basically made from 5 animals. So you have the shell, you have the fish, you have the pata, and then you have a duck and a chicken.
And why do you offer this to the gods?
Yes, usually we offer because we want to pray for prosperity, good harvest, good health, and fortune. It's actually made out of pastry, and inside is pineapple filling. As you may know, Chinese we like pineapple because pineapple also is a homonym. The pronunciation is similar to good luck. And then you also offer cat because cat, the T means good, something good. Yes. And even like the longan, you know, the jujube. Yeah. And also the tikoy, you have to offer that one also during New Year because tikoy, the pronunciation in Mandarin is nian gao. And nian stands alone for year. Gao means high.
And I also noticed that there's 2 auspicious things there. There's the number 8 and red.
8 also sounds homonym to fat choy.
Okay.
Yeah, so 8 is pa, and then fat choy is pa. Yeah.
Ah, okay. A lot of it has to do with the way that things are pronounced. I
Yes.
learned something new.
All right, so thank you so much again for showing us around Binondo. It was really a great time.
Oh, anytime, Claire. And if you're wondering about our last names, yes, we are related. She's the daughter of my first cousin, Nick Celdran.
And invite everyone to come over for the Chinese New Year.
Of course. So everybody, please come down to Binondo, Chinatown. It's like really going on a vacation abroad right in your own backyard. Either come down here to the Chinese New Year celebrations or after.
Well, thanks again.
All right. Bye.
Well, lots of interesting facts in that clip, Claire, and you really had a great time. I wish I was with you.
Yes,
and we're with
Binondo
you.
is such a lively, area, and it's really, I can feel the energy, and the food is just everywhere, and all these things that you can buy.
Do you know there are many historic places there daw na we should preserve eh? I remember si Secretary of Tourism Gordon noon, sabi niya Juan Luna was born there daw eh. Still has the house there pa. The old house now, Spanish time pa.
So it'd be nice to preserve
Oo nga
it.
eh.
Yeah.
And the old banks nandun.
Yung bahay ni Juan Luna, ano na ngayon siya?
I heard kasi I was there and then sabi ni Gordon, tinuro niya ako, it's now a Bihon bodega.
Bodega. Bihon.
But at least di ba sinira?
At least being on long life longevity mo na symbol niya.
Sabi ko kaya, dapat somebody should buy it, a mayaman of the government, and make it
And
a
restore.
museum. Oh, we should do that. Parang Singapore, Chinatown. Di ba Singapore, Chinatown daw? They restore all these old houses and shop houses.
Interesting trivia fact that I've learned about the changing of names. I think you were saying something earlier. Like the Chinese came here.
Some adopted longer
surnames because when the Spaniards wanted the Chinese to be converted to Catholic, so you can become a Filipino. So for you to be able to do so, Chinese kasi one syllable name lang eh. So you have to have a Spanish sounding last name. So what they do is instead of they lengthen their names, like you have a Cojuangco, Di Chao, Di Chauki, Tihanki, and kaya ganun.
Dapat shorter lang talaga siya.
Parang it's like
One syllable siya.
One
Naging 3
syllable.
syllables. Yeah.
Goko and ano,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
just...
Sa Spanish, Ayala, Fernandez, Aboitiz.
So you have to make it sound Spanish.
Yeah.
And I think also there was a time the Filipinos did not have last names. So the Spaniards yata in the 19th century made a decree na everybody has to adopt Spanish last names. So they gave out different surnames to different cities and towns. They had to choose. And there were some Chinese at that time already in the Philippines. Some adopted din yata the Spanish surnames. Like si Jose Rizal, Kuwa talaga siya eh.
Kuwa.
Oh, direct descendant siya, male descendant of a Kuwa family. Pero naging Lamco eh. Dapat Kuwa Lamco naging Damco. Tapos naging Mercado. They just got the adopted name lang. Mercado is an adopted name lang. And Rizal is a second last name lang. Ginamit lang ni Rizal kasi yung kuya niya, Pasiano Mercado at that time, went to Manila to study and was very close to one of the Combursa priests, Father Burgos. So when the 3 priests were killed, sabi ng kuya na when you go to Manila and study at Ateneo, don't use the Mercado last name kasi ilan lang ang Mercado na taga Calamba, mag-Ateneo, baka ma-identify daw. So use the Rizal name daw. So he's the only family member sa Mercado who did not use Mercado. So naging Rizal. Well, that Mercado is an adopted name also.
Okay. Before we continue talking about apparently it's the oldest Chinatown in the
Yes.
Philippines, Binondo.
In the world.
No, in the world.
In the world, I mean, in the world.
I heard
The
it's
oldest.
CNN said that eh.
Yeah,
The oldest in the
I
world.
read it.
It's confirmed,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
400 plus years now.
1590s.
1500s,
Yeah,
yeah.
1500s.
Yes,
Yes, it is
100
the
years.
oldest in the world.